Welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Rate and review the show at kevinmd.com/rate. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/follow. Today in the show, we have Amanda Lundberg. She is a nurse and she wrote the Kevin MD article, How to Maintain Your Relationships During Nursing School. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Kevin.
So we'll get into the article in a little bit, but first off, can you share your story and journey to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for about 13 years, bedside nurse. And lately I have just kind of dived full into content marketing and copywriting for healthcare brands. So I do nurse writing, and my company is Loxley Content, and it allows for a little bit more flexibility in, work-life balance. And so I do freelance now.
All right. Tell me about that transition that you had from the clinical role to what you're doing as a content producer. Was it a difficult transition?
It's different. It is very different. You kind of miss that one-on-one with patients, but with the content marketing and copywriting, you do feel like you are helping kind of a wider range of patients or just people. They don't necessarily have to be patients, depending upon the brand that you're working with. And the writing part actually came pretty easily. You think about nurses and they do a lot of documentation. Mm-hmm. It's short, succinct, to the point. So that's kind of how my writing is, and it translated pretty well to figuring that out. So the writing portion was actually kind of the easier, part of it.
So tell me, what kind of things do you write about?
So I have a blog. So those are kind of more my personal writings. And then for some of the other brands, I write about nonprofit AI, using those in healthcare nonprofits. I write about, different medications, working with the medication brand. You could write anything from, social media posts to blog posts to advertisements, any of those, anything really with health or wellness. Just because of my background, that's kind of my niche.
So I have a lot of people listening to the podcast, clinicians and nurses. Sometimes they want to do something on the side, content marketing, for instance. How difficult is it to generate income doing what you do?
It takes a little bit of time, but there's not a lot of overhead costs to start something that's, from home, but it definitely takes time to kind of get your foot in the door and figure out your style and get your first couple clients. But once you do that, it kind of flows. It flows pretty well. It's very kind of easy to pick and choose what you want to work on. So if you have, a passion about some sort of thing within the healthcare sector, it's pretty nice that you can choose to work on that, or sometimes turn down other companies if need be.
And did you have any guidance or a mentor to help you get started, or is this something that you did completely on your own?
No, that's another thing that would be very difficult, I think, to kind of do it on your own. I even tell people now, ask what I do for a living, and I'm like, well, it's even hard to communicate what exactly it is. I think I get a lot of blank stares. Yes, my sister-in-law runs a content marketing agency for not healthcare related, but so she kind of helped me along in figuring out what that looks like.
All right. Let's talk about the Kevin MD article. It's titled, How to Maintain Your Relationships During Nursing School. Now, for those who didn't get a chance to read your article, can you just walk my audience through it and share the story of why you decided to write it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's a lighthearted article mixed with a little humor in there. I am no relationship guru. I'm no love expert. Just someone who went through nursing school. And, over the last 15 years, I've been in school for about 8 or 9 of those years with prerequisites. I have a couple bachelor's degrees, so in the nursing, program. So it's been a long process. And through that, I've dated, got engaged, got married, everything. So it's kind of the whole process and what that looks like. Relationships during nursing school is difficult. Nursing school takes a lot of time, and it's not, limited to nursing school. It'd be really any kind of job or any kind of school that takes a lot of your time, away from your loved ones. And so I just thought it'd be a fun article to write about some of the things that I experienced that, helped in my relationship and, to find out, how to spend more time together and how to make that person, your significant other or a friend, anybody feel like you are spending time with them and you have time during this kind of crazy time where nursing school is. So some of my favorite ones that you might not find in, regular articles. One of the things that I really pushed, I guess, with our relationship is outsourcing.
Hmm.
And it might be controversial. Outsourcing does take money to do. And so that was something that my husband and I really had to think about. And when I say outsourcing, I'm talking about, things that take away your time from each other and from school. So cleaning the house, walking the dog, grocery shopping, kind of all those things. There are services now that laundry is another one. There
Yeah.
are services that you can pay someone to do all those. And in some places they are, reasonable. And both my husband and I worked full time during school. So we were able to make this happen. We had to make some sacrifices. For instance, we hired a cleaning lady. I said, okay, if I'm going to go back to school, doing a bachelor's degree now, I want to get a cleaning lady in here so I don't have to spend my weekends cleaning. And, I'd rather either study or spend it, with my significant other. And so my husband said, okay, we'll do that. He agreed to it. And so we hired a cleaning company to come in, and it was great. I didn't have to spend my free time doing that sort of thing. We basically had to sacrifice about one, fancy dinner out when we'd go out on a Friday night or something. So it was worth it to us. We'd stay in and have pizza instead, but hey, our house would be clean. So it's those sorts of things that really helps find the time to spend together. Some of the other ones are I encouraged my husband to find a hobby outside of just us being together. So, joining a soccer, league or a football or, softball or, meeting new friends. And so he can go out, while I have that time to study, and I didn't feel bad with he was just sitting downstairs watching Netflix. I was able to know that he was out doing something fun so I could focus on studying, and I didn't feel any guilt about not spending time with him. So that was another one. And also spending time together doing stuff to decrease your stress levels. One thing we did was we went outside and walked every single night, just walked the dog and just took, it was probably a 15-minute walk, but it was a nice time. We don't have our phones with us. We just walked and we just were able to chit chat about the day. And that 15 minutes was great every night, just to connect and have that special time together. And we also, walking outside is a decrease in stress in itself. And so that just helped, to do that together. Well, those are just kind of some of the tidbits, that I write about in this article.
I think a lot of the challenges that you talked about certainly would apply to people in medicine as well. A lot of clinicians listen to this podcast. So as you were going through nursing school, tell me, what are some of the biggest obstacles that you had to overcome as it relates to balancing that with your personal life?
I think one of the big ones was during nursing school, a lot of your cohort, they're called cohorts, a lot of they have set study group times, and those there were plenty of them. And nursing school participants are ranging from, right out of high school to, 65-year-old second career. So you have a range of people who have kids, who don't have kids, don't have pets, less responsibilities. You have people who have a lot of responsibilities. And so a lot of people wanted to get together very often for these study groups. And so one of the challenges was just taking a step back and saying, you know what, it's more important for me to spend time with my significant other and really value that time rather than those study groups. And if you decrease the amount of those study groups, I felt like they were more valuable, I guess, during the time. There's less chit chat and, talking about just random things. And so it was more directed, and I valued those certain hours that we did, spend together. So whereas some people might not have anyone at home or a significant other, so that is their time to spend with people, and that's great. And a lot of people find, comfort and value in that. But that was just one of my struggles.
If you were to repeat this all over again and go through nursing school all over again, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Yeah, I would have started when I was 18. It was kind of a second degree for me. So that's why I took so long to get through it. I did certain portions. I did my LPN first, worked as an LPN, then went back to RN, worked as an RN, then went back for my bachelor's in nursing. So that's kind of why it took me so long. If I would have known at 18 after high school that I wanted to be a nurse, I could have gone straight into it at a 4-year. I would have been, done by 22 or 23. But that's looking back, and I wouldn't have the experience as, I do. And so that's one thing though I would encourage people is if you know that that's what you want to do, go for it.
We're talking to Amanda Lundberg. She's a nurse. She wrote the Kevin MD article, How to Maintain Your Relationships During Nursing School. So, Amanda, we've heard a lot about the great resignation, right? You have a lot of healthcare professionals who are leaving the field, and of course, nurses are no exception. Now, you left clinical medicine. So, what kind of advice do you have for these nurses who may be burnt out, who may want to leave clinical medicine and maybe want to do something else with their nurse degree?
Yeah, so I have a little bit different take on that. I loved being a bedside nurse. I absolutely loved my position. I loved my management. I really enjoyed my coworkers, the patients. So my reason for actually leaving bedside is different than kind of some of the struggles that a lot of nurses have. I could not find childcare for my second baby. There was no childcare in the area. And so I had to make that tough decision to say, okay, well, I don't have a choice. We pieced together with family members for a little while, and then I just finally said, okay, I got to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
And so, using your nursing background and your nursing license to do something from home, that is more flexible in time is really where I, decided to head. But I do know that there is a lot of struggles right now with nurses leaving the bedside. And I think, I think we need more support for nurses. I do think, there was a lot of verbal support at the beginning of COVID, and it was great. And, I felt very honored to be a nurse at that time. It was wonderful. Everybody, saw you as this hero, as a medical worker. And it was great. But I think that, the public has a great perception of nursing, and unfortunately kind of the back end of nursing is a lot of administrative
Mm-hmm.
and management issues. I know wages, time off, overtime, a lot of these struggles that nurses deal with.
And my final question, what are some of your take-home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
Yeah, so pertaining to the article is just in anything that you are spending a lot of time on, either nursing school, medical school, just working as a nurse or a medical, healthcare worker, is to make sure that you spend time with your significant other. There's a lot of things that they might just not understand from your work unless they work in healthcare too. And the time spent can be valuable and be very directed, towards helping that relationship thrive during those times.
Amanda, thank you so much for sharing your time and insight. Thanks again for being
Yeah,
on the
thanks,
show.
Kevin. Take care.